Hello, welcome back to my haunted library and welcome to another edition of Slow Burn Sunday, back by popular demand. Seemed like my last video got a lot of thumbs up, so I'm happy to comply with a special holiday edition of Slow Burn Sunday. You notice I'm doing it song sling. I'm slowly getting there. Normally, for Christmas, I would do in my haunted library a whole thing with Batilda where we told ghost stories, and I love doing that. And I thought of trying to get that together this year, but it's just too much. The holiday really completely crept up on me. I haven't even done any shopping. Normally, I would have my tree up in the studio and decorations out, but that would require climbing a ladder and pulling boxes out of a hayloft. Well, it's not exactly a hayloft, a loft. There was no hay up there, but you know what I mean. Yeah, that's not happening this year. I just have to give myself permission to have a very laid back, low-keyed Christmas. So that's what I'm going to do. It's also sad. It's our first Christmas without both my and Joe's moms. Lost them both this year. And of course, Lily and other friends whom we would share holiday greetings with and make special effort to see are no longer with us. So it's one of those holidays, one of those, I guess you could say blue Christmases, but there's always something positive in the negative. And just because you're still here, that's how I look at it. I'm still here for today. I'm going to make the most of it and have a really nice Christmas just with me and Joe and Lucky and friends. I have some events planned for the week, but just low-key stuff. Anyway, so for the holiday Slow Burn Sunday, some of you might guess what it is. Of course, if you looked at the thumbnail, you know what it is. One of my favorite movie of the weeks, and that is Home for the Holidays. This stars Sally Field, who's really adorable in it, and some other actors and actresses whom you might know. Well, actresses mostly, because this is a woman's picture, and that makes me love it even more. It's one of those chamber piece dramas, you could say. All takes place in a scary old house, and there's a storm. It's not a snowstorm. I believe this, just from the territory and the woods, it looks like it takes place in like the Great Northwest, Washington State or Oregon, someplace like that, which makes sense because they would have shot this film on the West Coast. And this was produced by Aaron Spelling. Of course, he was famous for doing like really famous television shows and becoming very rich that way in the 80s mostly, but he did produced a lot of these TV movie of the weeks. So let's take a look. This came out in 1972. It is described as a slasher film. I guess that makes kind of sense. Directed by John Llewellyn Moxey and produced by Aaron Spelling. So it stars Sally Field, Eleanor Parker, who would definitely be in the Grand Dame Guignol category. She was an actress in the 50s, a film actress. Julie Harris, great actress, of course. You will know her from Haunting of Hill House, but she was a stage and screen actress bar none. I mean, she was a serious actress, as they say back in the day, serious actress. So she brings a lot to the table on this. Jessica Walter, who's probably most famous for Play Misty for Me. She plays the psychotic woman in love with Clint Eastwood. It's kind of a little bit of a precursor to Fatal Attraction. It kind of has that feeling. She was in a lot of these TV movie of the weeks, and she had a long career. I think she was in Arrested Development. She's a very glamorous woman. All the women, including Julie Harris, in this show are glamorous. And the great Walter Brennan, who plays the ailing father, he was a very well-known, extremely successful, popular character actor from Hollywood and television, mostly known for playing in Westerns. And he had a very distinctive voice and look, and he was that Western character. But he also did a lot of other types of films and television. So we have quite a cast. And I don't want to forget, even though she's not listed on the main cast, on the Wikipedia page. Jill Hayworth is one of the sisters, a very glamorous, gorgeous actress who was the original Sally Bowles in Cabaret. Judi Dench took over that role. And also, a little bit of trivia, Julie Harris played Sally Bowles in the original play, which Cabaret is based on that play. It started out as a memoir. Okay, so that's a little backdrop on the cast. It begins in this home that's very large. It kind of looks like a big ranch on the outside, but it looks more, someday would use different locations for the interior. It definitely looks more Victorian on the inside. But basically, it's about a wealthy invalid, Benjamin Morgan, played by Walter Brennan, believes his second wife, Elizabeth, played by Julie Harris, is trying to poison him. Alex, the oldest daughter, played by Eleanor Parker, believes him. Thus, she summons her three sisters, Freddie, Joe, and Chris, to the Morgan farmhouse for Christmas. And then things kind of go all right from there. I do have a confession to make. I based a lot of my first novel, Unmasked, on this movie, where I have a sibling, an older sibling, kind of summoning the rest of the family home for a get-together that turns out to be not what it really is. And there's one scene where there's like a chase scene through the woods where the character's wearing a slicker and carrying a pitchfork. Well, in mine, I think I put my killer in a slicker too, with a canoe paddle. So I definitely did an homage to this movie in my book. In fact, a lot of these TV movie of the weeks, this is a very personal series for me because a lot of these formed the basis of my love of horror because they're just embedded in my soul and I love them and they're really good stories. So I have a good teacher and there's exactly the kind of thing I love. They're gothic, they're campy, a little over the top, but so are my books. And speaking of which, if you haven't gotten your copy of Final Dress, there it is. Make sure you pick it up. Okay, that's my plug. Oh, and before I forget, I'm going to have tons of spoilers. I'm going to give away the whole plot and you'll find out who the killer is. So if you don't want to know that, you haven't watched it yet, go watch it and then come back. Or if you have watched it, just enjoy as I go over all this stuff. I might get something wrong, guys. I watched it twice and I've seen it a couple times before, of course, but I may have missed something. So all the sisters have problems and you sense that these problems come from the fact that they have a very unhappy home life, and this is why they all left. The mother committed suicide, and it is implied that the father was such a bastard that he drove her to it. So we have Alex, the older sister, who's kind of holding everyone together. She's taking care of everything. The opening shot, you see her trimming the Christmas tree. She's trying to make it nice, but there's a lot of tension in the household because the father's like, my wife, second wife, she's trying to kill me. Well, they come up with a kind of cockamamie excuse why they can't call the sheriff. There's been a lot of talk in the town about the Morgan family, and they are very isolated. They're 10 miles from town on this huge, what looks like a ranch. And one thing that is happening throughout the entire film until the end is it's storming. Not a snowstorm, but a rainstorm all day and all night, lightning, thunder, lights going out, telephone going out, all of that. So that is the backdrop. So we're very isolated inside this house and you really feel that, which was what makes such a great domestic drama. Like you're trapped with this dysfunctional family. So we have the father. He, all the girls, none of them really want to be there, go to meet the father and he basically says, my wife's trying to kill me. And they're like, well, what do you want us to do? And he's like, stop her. How, Dad? Kill her! Walter Brennan gets this great close-up, kill her! He spends most of his role in bed, and then sometimes he's like looking through the door. It's a pretty small role for such a giant. But anyway, so we have Eleanor Parker's Alex, Julie Harris as the wife, Elizabeth, and we have Jessica Walter playing Freddie or Frederica, who has a major drinking problem. Joe is this glamorous, cool drink of water and I love how she's dressed with the little fur hat and she's a beautiful blonde. There's a sense that she's had all these husbands, that she's She's a party animal. They've all dealt with their trauma in different ways. The only one who seems kind of well adjusted is Sally Field's character, Chris. Julie Harris plays very cool. At one point, you see that she's outside wearing her rain slicker. So they all have this kind of tense Christmas Eve dinner. I love how they dress for dinner. I always love that tradition. Don't show up at the table in your sweatpants. Dress for dinner. Sally Field's wearing this really cute little maxi dress that I remember wearing to a cousin's wedding. I remember I had almost that exact same dress that had the frilly collar, and you would curl those little tendrils around the side of your face. It's so 70s. I just love it. So during this tense dinner, Freddie doesn't come to the table because she's too drunk, and then suddenly there's this screaming, this horrible screaming. They all run up, and you hear Alex say, "It's coming from the sewing room!" And they all run up the stairs like, what is in the sewing room? I guess it's the mother's all of her things and this beautiful portrait of her. And Freddie's having like a alcoholic psychosis breakdown, and she's like, she was so beautiful. He killed her. She can't get past this, and, ends up, breaking the glass and cutting her wrist, and they put her to bed, but she's like in a catatonic state. And Jo, the glamorous sister's like, I'm out of here. I mean, it's night, it's pouring rain. She's like, I gotta get out of here. Alex is like, oh, please, Jo, please stay. No, I've had enough. I have to go, but I have to use your car. I have to borrow your car to make my train. So you think, and she's driving this great old Mercedes. And you think like, okay, how's Alex gonna get her car back? Now they're gonna be stranded without a car. Okay. Jo goes out to the garage wearing this wonderful camel coat. And I love she came in a different coat and then leaves in another coat with one like small suitcase. Like, where'd you fit the coat? Or maybe it was still in the house. I don't know. Maybe it was her mother's coat. I don't know. But she looks amazing. She goes into the garage, looks in the car. There are no keys. She gets out of the car and there's a figure standing there in the slicker and the wellies, and jabs her in the back with a pitchfork and kills her and then drags her body off. So we have our first kill. So then the next day is Christmas Day, and what's his name? Shows up. We see Ted earlier. He's a local guy who's now a doctor. Chris had a crush on him when they were kids. And he talks to Alex. I forgot to mention that's an early scene on the road where she's going to go pick up the girls at the airport. So we establish his character. He stops by Christmas Day. It's kind of a very sad, not much joy and celebration in the air for Christmas Day. He gives Chris a little necklace, kind of hinting that he still has a crush on her and she's still has a crush on him. She tells him that, she doesn't have a boyfriend because she scares them off. So, okay. So then later that night, we see Freddie drinking herself into a stupor in the bathtub. And I remembered this really scared me when I was a kid. She's sort of like passing out and you just see these hands with the Playtex living gloves that you do see Elizabeth put on when she's going to wash dishes. There's a clue. And you also see Elizabeth wearing the yellow slicker. So is it Elizabeth? Is she the killer? Seems like a little bit obvious. But anyway, you see the hands in the gloves pull Freddie's feet and drown her in the bathtub. And she's still holding the glass and just kind of drops it. That really scared me when I was a kid. Then there were some horrible screams, and they discover Freddie dead in the bathtub. They move her body into the bedroom, and now the two sisters are panicking. What do we do? We're in this house with this killer, Elizabeth. So Chris is like, I can't sit around here. We can't just do nothing. And Alex is like, well, what can we do? It's 10 miles into town. It's a storm. Chris is like, well, I can't sit around and do nothing. I'm going to walk the mile through the woods to, I forget the name of the maid's house. Maybe her phone is working. I know those woods like the back of my hand. I can do it. And you see Chris run out in the woods in her little ski jacket. Now, I definitely remember this scene very well, and I definitely did an homage to this in my book Unmasked. You see Chris running into the woods, and unfortunately, the resolution of at least the film that I watched was really poor, so it was really hard to see what was going on. But basically, she starts getting chased by a figure in the Wellingtons and the slicker and the pitchfork, I believe. And there's this great chase scene through the woods where Sally Field's like stumbling over logs, and she's like hiding beneath like a rotted tree, and she sees the boots come up. So it's just a really classic chase scene. She ends up kind of, I guess, getting lost in the woods. She stumbles out, and it's dark, and she stumbles onto Joe's body. Like you just see like the hand all white, like really pale, coming out of the dirt and then you see like just her face partially covered in dirt. It's really quite shocking and scary. She starts screaming, runs into the house screaming for Alex. Alex, oh, she sees Elizabeth, Julie Harris. Julie Harris is like, Chris, and she's wearing the slicker. And she's like, no, go, get away from me. And she runs into the house. She locks the door. All the lights are out from the storm. She's screaming for Alex. Is Dad okay? She's running around the house like crazy. And Sally Field does an amazing job in this scene, just screaming and being really terrified. She hears the sound of Elizabeth going in through the storm cellar, so she knows she's in the house. She hides in this little cupboard, and it's almost like she's a little kid. I had like almost like echoes of Sybil in this. You see Elizabeth kind of wandering around the house, and when Chris feels like it's safe, she runs into her father's room and locks the door. It's like, Dad, you're running back to your father, and then she just hears this, he's dead, and she turns, and there's Elizabeth, Julie Harris, like sitting in the chair. Ah! Chris screams and runs out of the house. She has no idea where Alex is. She's running down the road now, just desperately trying to get away. And here comes Alex in her car. So she must have gone somehow, picked up the car. I don't know. No, the car was back at the house. But anyway, she's driving. This is a really good scene. Chris is like, oh my God, thank God. She starts telling her everything that's happened. Elizabeth's gone crazy. She's killed everybody. Everybody's dead, And then you see Eleanor Parker plays such a great deranged grande dame. That's what, if you ever watched, one of my favorite campy films I've talked about on this channel before, Charles Bush as, female impersonator Charles Bush. Amazing talent. His film Die Mommy Die, where he really plays this kind of, deranged heroine. Including like the perp walk at the end, which is so classic. This is what I love about these films. It has all of those classic tropes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, Alex is like, she starts getting this little deranged like twitch in her mouth. And she has this great speech, which is a reference to an earlier exchange she had with Joe about being an emotional prisoner. I'm an emotional prisoner. I've got to get away from all of you. And Chris is like, but why, Alex? You could have just left. He's like, no, your faces would follow me to the grave, Anyway, so they have this little exchange. Alex picks up a crowbar and bangs it into Chris, and Chris goes tumbling down the side of this mountain. Alex gets out the flashlight, and, she's looking. Chris is just laying there at the bottom of the ravine. Alex is getting all deranged. Okay, I got another one. I know all about deranged sisters, so there's something just very cathartic about these movies for me. Ted drives up. He's got his nice, I don't know if they had SUVs at that time, but it's sort of like a Bronco or something. And he gets out. Alex does her, performance of a lifetime, telling him all that's happened. They're all dead. And Chris ran away. I tried to stop her. She got lost in the storm. And he's like, well, look, I'll look for Chris. You drive into town and get the sheriff and come back. So Alex is like, okay. And you can see her kind of thinking this through. Is this going to work out the way I want it to? All right, so now we cut to the next day. The storm has passed. It's sunny. It's beautiful. They're driving back. Alex is driving back with the sheriff, and there's this one shot where she's looking over at the ravine where she threw Chris over the side, and she gets that little deranged smile. She goes back to the house. She tells the sheriff everything that's happened. Julie Harris, Elizabeth, is dressed in this like great mourning black with a pearl necklace. She's at the top of the stairs just looking at her. And you can see Alex giving her this triumphant look, like, I did it, but everyone's going to think you did it. So, ha, ha, ha. And I'm going to get the house and the money, and I don't have to deal with my sisters anymore and their neurotic problems. So they go upstairs, and the sheriff says, Chris is in the other room. And she goes into the room, Chris's bedroom, and Sally Field, is laying under the blankets and her face is all beat up. And again, Alex has got to perform. So, oh, my baby, poor thing. And she looks and, uh-oh. Chris is breathing. Her eyes open. She's alive. And then there's this great, Eleanor Parker just like knocks it out of the park with this great deranged, like, this hysterical scream. I'm just going to show that right now.
Poor baby.
That is a performance straight out of a 50s B movie with like grabbing the hair, like Snake Pit or something. I think that's Olivia de Havilland in the Snake Pit anyway, but that like, I've seen Batilda do that a few times. Chris is alive, and she doesn't even say anything. It's just all in her facial expression, the sadness, the disbelief, but also, the truth. We get the idea that she and Ted are going to maybe get together. And then there's this wonderful perp walk at the end of the deranged killer. You can see where these movies from the 70s encapsulate all of these older movies that have come before them from the 50s, like movies that Eleanor Parker would be in. Those elements are still there, and I just love it. So I hope you enjoyed my discussion of one of my favorite TV movies of the week, Home for the Holidays, a perfect movie to watch this holiday season. So let me know in the comments below if you've seen Home for the Holidays, what you think of it, or if you plan to watch it. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's all I have for today. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas or however you celebrate, and I will see you soon in the Haunted Library. Bye.